So, hey everybody, how you doing? Welcome to the Recruiting Superhero Show. And this week it's going to be a cracking session. We've got Clair Bush, who's from Huntress, then Broadbean, then Bullhorn, and now specialising in helping recruitment companies and providers to the recruitment industry get more inbound leads and have a cracking marketing strategy. So we've got some great tips today, but first and foremost, hello Claire.
Hi, how are you all doing? Thanks, Alex. This is really great.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. And for all the listeners out there, Claire's starting to lose her voice. So
Sorry.
we've got to listen extra carefully. So as I said, sort of the day of where to be able to get enough vacancies for a recruiter just by smashing the phones and breaking your way into vacancies, it's a bit old hat now. It's not that it doesn't work, but life is a lot better when people start calling you. And what that means is that you've got to think a lot about what you do as a marketeer. And what I mean for that is about becoming front of mind awareness. If I said to you, let's order pizza, which firm would you think of? My first firm would be Domino's. And that means that in my mind, Domino's has got front of mind awareness. So Claire's going to talk a little bit about front of mind awareness and how that can help us getting inbound leads, and then we'll crack into it. So Claire, from a marketer's perspective, what is the point of front of mind awareness?
I suppose the biggest thing is that it kind of is that direct view to business, to being able to accelerate your revenue streams, to be able to get in front of people faster and more easily. But then most of all as well, it's about having that kind of confidence in the products and services that you're selling. So not just for recruitment agencies, but anybody that's got something to sell. If you are front of mind, you've got that really quick transition from an idea into an actual practical purchase.
And why is it that you think recruiters struggle with the idea of front of mind awareness? What is it that makes it difficult for them?
There's loads of things that make it really difficult. It's an absolutely amazingly convoluted marketplace. There are so many different types of services, different points of entry. You've got different types of recruitment that also then provide, obviously this human factor involved, which is called people, and they're very difficult to corral and to motivate and to organize. So yeah, it's a really difficult situation to be in to start with. And then what we do is we provide a service. So, there's the length and breadth of a piece of string. So how long do you want the service to be provided for, or what type of service do you want to be kind of filled? Is it a quick vacancy, or is it a long or hard to find person that you need for a job? And then on the back end of all of that, you've then got all of the different providers helping you to deliver that service as well. So we've got so many different facets, and I call it kind of like the multi-complex matrix in which we work, the world in which we operate in, just in terms of the recruitment industry as it is. So yeah, there's lots of ways not to do this, but there's also a lot of ways to perform recruitment, I suppose.
Great. Well, and today you're going to help us with how recruiters can be more authentic, to come across more genuine in what they're doing. We're going to help with transparency and how you approach what you do to try and build stronger relationships, and then also simplicity. How do you do all this stuff simply? And I know marketing is an extremely complicated world. There's so many tools, techniques, systems that you sort of could get involved in that might just take you away from your day job, which is finding candidates for clients. So without further ado, so the first thing is about authenticity. So could you just outline why you think recruiters have difficulty with being authentic, and what would you advise recruiters do to be more authentic in how they work?
Yeah, I think authenticity is something that we kind of park on the shelf when we put our recruitment hat on and we perform a task within a business. You said right at the beginning, it's about bashing the phones, it's about talking to people, it's trying to drive engagement through conversations. But the problem that we do have is that we kind of fall into this sort of, I suppose, a kind of comfort zone, in that this is the way that I was taught to do recruitment. This is the way my boss was taught to do recruitment, and his or her boss before them. And it's this sort of passed on through generations mental kind of ability to kind of go, actually, you know what, myself, my own personality doesn't need to shine through in this conversation because it's a recruitment process. So essentially from the very beginning, we're parking ourselves and we're not bringing our own personality to the front. And actually, our own personality is the key that unlocks authenticity from the get-go.
Okay. And so how do you know whether someone is being good or authentic? So I know you're going to give us some tips, but it still seems sort of like a big word. So I'm just sort of, how would you know whether you are being authentic, or how would you sort of guess whether that's the case?
I kind of feel that, at this point you have to ask yourself. It's one of those deeper, meaningful things where we could get all kind of mindful and everything else. But if you can actually say, I know myself enough to be true to the person that I'm talking to be able to say, actually, you know what, I really believe in the role that I'm playing. I really believe in the service that I'm providing. And that in itself speaks volumes in terms of authenticity. Okay. It puts you across in the way that can automatically drive trust. And if you don't have trust, you don't have the beginnings of a relationship.
So you're saying authenticity is actually more about whether you feel you're being yourself rather than necessarily always in the eye of the beholder, as it were.
Yeah. So
okay.
20 years ago, when I first started out in the world of work, I wasn't doing marketing, and I wasn't working in recruitment. I was working in publishing sales, and it was god awful. And I really, take my hat off to anybody else who still does that job. But to be told to be on the phone and bang out 70 calls a day, to build that business development, you were told to put a smile on your face. And if you smile whilst you talk, then someone on the other end of the phone feels like you're really happy doing the job that you're doing. And even if it was the shittiest job in the world, you felt a little bit better because you did have this smile plastered on your face. And if you didn't, back in the days of corporal punishment at the desk, that's, you kind of got struck with whatever my boss could throw at us at the time. Thankfully, that's not the world that we work in now. And actually, I've been more and more kind of accustomed to seeing businesses really thrive on enabling and empowering their employees to be themselves at their desk, to bring their personalities through into the brand that they're working for. And that then gives much better return. So it's just about having that culture, I think, really.
Okay. And so what would you say if you were talking to a recruiter about your top sort of 2, 3, 4 things that you could do today that might be able to help you start being a bit more authentic in the way you work?
So get a couple of sheets of paper, write down on one a couple of headers for each different sheet. But what are you good at, and what do you love doing? What are you bad at, and what do you hate doing? And those 4 elements do sound very similar, but actually once you start listing down, you get an overview of your own personality. And actually when you're on the phone to someone, and if you do this exercise with the person on the phone, especially if you're onboarding a new candidate, or even trying to figure out with a client what the real kind of nuances are of the role that you're trying to fill, you get a very good picture very quickly in terms of where you can then actually apply your own experiences, and then you've got another point of interest and engagement with the person on the end of the phone. Okay.
And any other tips? So that's quite that. Once you've got that list, what do you do with it? Because that so okay, now I know what I like, now I don't what I don't like. How do I translate that into actions when I'm speaking to a candidate or I'm speaking to a client?
It gives you that humility, but also humanity. And I think it's really easy to kind of stand by the very, very well rehearsed, we're experts we're the best in the industry because we do this, nobody else does. All of those lines are subject to massive amounts of scrutiny, and they can be seen through, they're kind of like Swiss cheese. There's so many holes in those kind of statements. But if you can turn around and say, actually, you know what, I'm really good at this. I've been doing this for a while now. These are my clients. These are my candidates. I just worked on this job, just worked on that job and the placement, and I can put you in touch with candidates that I've worked with in the past who I'm still talking to. That kind of level of confidence in your own self only comes from knowing yourself.
And so is it possible to use some of those sort of standard stock statements you're given by your company and then weave those into your own sort of statements and to sort of translate what the company says you've got to say and work to put that into your own words?
Yeah, you see, I'm massively skeptical of any kind of marketing vision. Having written quite a few of them over the time, I really do think that the only vision worth really reiterating is the corporate values and the culture statement of the company that you work for, because that kind of gives already an impression of who you are and what you stand for. And it's the values that are more important than the actual statement, if that makes sense.
Okay. And I think I spend a lot of time when I work on site with companies is actually helping people work out what those things that bring value are.
Yeah.
And typically it's a blend of what you bring, what your team bring, and what your company bring. And so sometimes as an individual, you bring a lot of value. It could be your years of experience. It could be a depth of knowledge in the market.
Yeah.
But if you're new in the business and new into recruitment, often you don't have a lot to talk about that is relevant. So how can you leverage what your team does, what your company do, and translate that into an authentic sort of statement that still keeps you at the core, as it were?
I think that kind of brings me into my second point, which is about the transparency. So no matter what level of experience you've got, or how long you've been doing the job, or whether or not you're out of industry and you've just come into recruitment for the first time, having that transparency and saying, look, I don't have all the answers, but I'm trying to work through this, and I want to do that with you, in partnership with you, rather than saying, I've got all the answers, just trust me. Because that kind of wide boy-girl approach is, it's long gone. There's a lot of people here now who have got ownership of their own careers. They want to deal with people who can make those introductions for them.
So let me
control everything.
Because I get the fact that saying I don't have all the answers, let's work through this together, is a great way to go. I think that's really good. But if I'm speaking to a recruiter and they go, "Hi, I'm the new kid, I know nothing," it's like if I check into a hotel and I see a badge saying trainee, or can I just deal with someone that knows what they're talking about?
Well, I think that's the thing. It's the way that you come across. I'm really prepared to speak to people who are new to roles all the time. So I had a conversation this morning with a really, really lovely lady who has basically graduated a year ago and reached out to me and said, look, I'm heading into a marketing career and I'd really like to know what you think I should be doing or where I should be going. And one of my first questions to her was, well, what is it that you've done? What brings you here already? And, even if someone's a week out of school or, doing this for the first time, or even an intern, they've got stories. Everybody has a backstory. Everybody has a reason why they're doing what they're doing. And I think that's the kind of level of transparency that I like to hear from. And again, it gives me that trust in the person that I'm dealing with, rather than saying, oh, actually, you know what, I've been doing this for years and years, and saying the most inappropriate and irrelevant things.
So I appreciate saying this is what I believe in, this is what I am as a person works, but like if you're a busy marketing director and you have used agencies, I'm sure, and if you pick up the phone and you're really busy and someone goes, "Hi, I've been doing this 6 weeks, I really don't know what you're talking about, just bear with me, I'll work through it." If surely that might even be authentic, but is that going to inspire trust and confidence from you?
If they're a recruiter and they've got the capabilities of being a really good recruiter, yeah, I'll stick with the conversation, because I'm really...
We need more Clairs in the world. That's what we need.
Far too trusting. No, I think, having someone who's willing to learn as part of the conversation. And recruitment is about relationship development. We've all got to start somewhere, and actually being able to develop relationships at whatever level, whether that's not being on the phone for 3 months and it's only kind of mapping, what's going on, all the experience that you've got within the team, and learning from the people that you're with and working, shadow them, figure out what conversation starters they've got, but also then translate that into your own conversation starters.
So and that definitely, I'm a massive advocate in watching what your colleagues do and integrate that. I think back to the point of when you are new working with a client, I think a key part is part of the organization. We spoke before about your proposition, as it were, as a mix of you, your team, your company.
Yeah.
I think it's saying your news fine, but then showing what controls are behind you and the team around you is, to make sure that you will do as good a job as a new person as if you were experienced. And that's why I think sometimes businesses need to work harder to help give those new people the just belief that they're not going to be allowed to do a bad job, and to be able to articulate that to a client. Because I don't mind working with someone that's new, as long as I know that someone isn't far behind, making sure it's done right. I was buying a train ticket the other day, and needless to say, I was typically about 3 minutes away, buying my ticket 3 minutes before the train departs. And I get there and someone's buying the train ticket. Someone says trainee, and you can see they've got the person behind you, and you're like, I'm not going to make this train. And what was reassuring is that that the guy knew I was in a rush, and he was like, right, this is what you do. And at that point, stepped in to make sure I didn't miss my train.
Yeah.
And I guess it's how do you, as a leader, is sort of make sure that your new people can be new, but also that the customers feel like there's experience not far behind.
I think that's really important. Having onboarded quite a lot of new recruits into lots of different business cases, I think it's really important that you've got to give space, but also have their back at the same time and leverage everything that they need, but at the point in time where it's relevant. There's nothing worse than seeing some poor new recruit completely overwhelmed with everything that their boss has basically learnt over 10, 15, 20 years. And you can see the sort of panic in their eyes when they're kind of like, oh, actually, you know what? This is just not going to work.
So we've got a great question from the recruiting animal. And he's chipped in and said, so how would you, Claire, if you were a recruiter and you're working with a busy marketing director, someone like you, how would you tell them, I'm new and ignorant, but don't worry about it?
I think I'd start with a conversation which is more of, I'm just starting out. I'd like to get to know you a little bit more. I appreciate that this is not the right time, or it may not be the right time, but could you spare me 5 to 10, 15 minutes just having a quick chat with me and being able to point me in the right direction? I think leveraging the sort of more learned person or the more experienced person's experience that way, one, you're giving flattery in the first place, and that, nobody's ever going to say no to that. And the second point is you're then getting a really good view, which you can then use later on in different conversations.
Okay, so that sort of works for a business development. What about when you're picking up a job? Like, because often you might be chasing a lead, or you might be getting that first briefing. What would you say to the client to say, how would you get that across to the client? Because remember, not all clients are really excited about dealing with recruiters. So you've got to be able to, they don't have that much time to babysit. They just want good people. So how would you get that across to make them know that you're new, but also you're going to get a great service?
And I think, again, it's like, the one of the biggest things that I think salespeople professionally struggle with is that one single point of contact. And if you are relatively new and you've only got that single point of contact to give you the information that you need, but also you need, much more of a broad picture, and especially when you're starting out, to get a picture of the business, to get a picture of the role, the level at which you're recruiting, and all of that, is ask for, is there other people within the team that I can talk to? I want to make sure I'm getting as much information at the front to kind of help me in my search, or, kind of be as comprehensive as possible. So spreading the points of interest and the points of contact within a business. And
I think that is a great approach, which is often experienced recruiters can say, look, I've done this a million times before. I know what I'm doing. Trust me. Where I think the newer person saying, look, I don't know everything, but I want to know. And so could you tell me? I'm going to ask lots of questions. I want to get it right for you. And I think showing that you're wanting to learn about the client's individual needs, I think is a great way of being transparent, but also building authenticity, which is, like, I just want to do a good job. And I remember when I started in recruitment, I'd often go, look, I'm not an expert at accounting, but I want to be an expert at helping you. And this is how I'm going to do it. So I think there's definitely saying you want to learn more. I think one of the biggest complaints often of clients is that recruiters just don't understand. But you've got to show that you're willing to understand and know. One of the parallels, my first ever director was a financial director in his previous life. And he said, recruitment's one of those worlds whereby we think we don't want to ask questions because it will make us look stupid. But we're speaking to accountants whose world is that if you don't ask questions when you don't know, you are stupid.
Yeah.
But because if you don't ask that question, you're going to go and make changes in the system that are going to impact the accounts. And they say, if you don't know, ask. And I think you're great. Where our brain's telling us, if we don't know, we don't ask because we'll look stupid. And we're going, don't do this because we'll look stupid. And they're thinking they're not doing that. They must be stupid. So
Now, I think everybody that's ever worked with me, I do it all myself. I ask a million questions. I do it whenever I'm onboarding a new client or if I'm working in a new business. It's about that kind of level of information, and don't just stop asking questions once you get established. Continue to ask questions, because then you're part of a change phenomenon that needs to constantly happen within businesses. You know, business moves at a rate of knots. The industry moves faster than that, and the culture and the adaptation of the people within it are also that kind of machine moving your business forward. And if you don't continue to challenge everything that you're learning, then you're not moving the business on and you're not growing as well.
So I think that's a great point, is often we can work for a client multiple times, but if we assume we know, actually a lot of might have changed in their business, how they work their business since we last recruited for them, and actually double checking it's all the same, make sure we're A, building some credibility, but B, not running down the road with sort of a toilet paper hanging out of our trousers.
Yeah, that's not a good look. That's not something you would want to strive for.
Exactly. So that's some really good advice there, Claire. So the last topic on our agenda is how to keep things simple. And what you said is that just keeping it simple is the key to success. So what would your advice be to recruiters who are looking to generate more inbound leads, to be better at sort of marketing and getting that front of mind awareness? How can they keep it simple, and how can they keep it simple?
So I've got 2 points basically, and one of them is kind of directed because of the questioning piece. If you ask why, you know, and it sounds ridiculous, but someone's ringing you up and saying, actually, I need to fill this job, and you don't want to turn around and go, well, why are you doing that? Because obviously that's not quite great. But if you can build in the why question into your conversation with the hiring manager or the head of HR, talent acquisition, whoever it may be, you get to start to fundamentally understand the organization that you're working for. That then gives you that level of information and insight into what their business is going through and the transformation their business is going through. You can then be much more invaluable further down the line. And as your relationships grow, the why point becomes your insight, which becomes the most valuable piece of your relationship with that hiring manager for a long term. So I'll turn it on its head. My husband's a car salesman. He deals with anywhere between 30 and 35 different dealerships a month. And he isn't tasked with selling a number of cars over a month. He's tasked with bringing on new buyers and with developing new relationships. Now, he's got a core set of probably about 20 to 25 dealerships that he regularly deals with. But he knows not just the types of cars that they like to buy, but he also knows what happens on their forecourt when, you know, their weeks are really hot versus the days of the week that are really slow. He knows what types of cars work best on which forecourts, and he also knows the not just the dealer, the main dealer, but he'll also know their team, and he'll know who knows what about which cars. So he's kind of got this matrix organization going within his head, within every dealership, and he knows all the way down to the cars. I mean, the cars are what he's selling, but actually the motivations and the knowledge are with the people. So that's how I feel that recruitment works best, is that you don't just know about the people that are needed. You need to know about the roles or the way that the business is growing in order to kind of fulfill that whole sort of spectrum of recruitment.
So would you, that's good. So you're telling me that I've got to learn not about what they need to recruit, but about the people and what's driving recruitment behind the scenes. So, but I'm a recruiter. I've got to pick up jobs because jobs equals CVs, CVs equals interviews, interviews equals placement. So At what point do I stop my BD and turn into a market researcher? Because I need jobs, right?
Well, I think you should be doing that all the time. You know, being a really effective researcher means that you'll be a really effective recruiter, as far as I'm concerned. It's not just about that you find the right people at the right time and put them in the right place. It's about knowing all of those nuances and when the right time is to approach a client in terms of the growth. And it's kind of even to the point where you're kind of keeping an eye on the press, and you know what sector in industry news is really hot right now, and you can translate that back to a learning point or a point of interest for your client, so that you can get on the phone to them and say, look, did you spot this? Saw that it's coming. What about if I start looking now? It may be 2 months out, but you're starting to really be that sort of thought leader for your client, you're also going to make them look brilliant if and when their organization goes, you know what, actually we do need, you know, 2-3 more heads in this department, and there you are with a short list of 5 to 10 candidates all ready to rock. So it's about being able that step ahead, really.
So if I'm trying to track buyers, what they buy, when they buy, what type of person they buy, how do you do that and keep it simple? Because that's starting to sound like a really complicated spreadsheet.
And then this is about being really authentic about what you know, what you like doing, and why you do what you do. It's what your motivations are. And it's about really thinking about your specialism and your niche. So I know a ton of stuff about marketing. I know a hell of a lot about marketing in the recruitment sector, but it doesn't mean to say that my marketing knowledge isn't something that I could then take to another industry. I just don't choose to do it because I really love where I'm at. So that's the sort of presence again, I think, you know, look inside and figure out who you are, what you love doing. And if you have a specialism or area of interest that really rocks your boat, then stick to it.
Yeah, and I think that whole research piece is the more you know about your market, the more you can feel like you belong in it.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of recruiters get trapped in that cycle of I've got to get a job, and never stop to actually want to know any more than whether a client's got a job. And actually behind the scenes, there's a lot to know about clients. I used to meet all of my clients face to face, and the best bit of any client meeting for me was always like the factory tour. Walking around the abattoir, walking around the sort of where they make the blade, the jet engines. You know, it's just fascinating to see how different businesses work, and also to notice that even though people might not be in the operations of a business, often accounting, finance, or marketing are equally as excited about what the business does as a product as the people that are making it day to day. So I think it's part of becoming more than just a CV machine, and part of becoming a business person that is there to A, provide candidates, but B, to talk about business and help people just with their problems that they have in retaining, motivating and developing staff.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a kind of full circle for me, you know, knowing what I do, knowing why I do it, being completely honest and transparent, and then also kind of, again, getting back to that simplicity. Life's hard enough. And I think if you enjoy what you do and you do it for all the right reasons, then it's a really nice place to be.
So we've got one more question, Claire, that's again come from Animal. So that ability to research your market, you know, and know what you're talking about can take time. And most recruiters don't have time. So what your husband's been doing, what he does for many years, which is why he's skilled at it. So what would your sort of the first 2 things you would do that would enable someone to start that process, but enable them to that actually do the job that they're expected to every day? Because what we described is like level 3, level 4, business development. Actually, what's the first thing you would do if you had to do your day job, which is picking up jobs? What's the first extra thing you would do that would begin you on that road to be like your husband is?
I think learning how to network, learning how to start a conversation, whether that's in person or on the phone. They're the skills that we don't all essentially kind of come out with. Not everybody is an extrovert, and not everybody likes the sound of their own voice when they're asking questions. And my voice sounds even more husky than it did 20 minutes ago. But, you know, having that ability to strike up a conversation, I think is really the most important skill, particularly in this industry. You know, for any sales role, any front of office kind of client facing role, you've got to be able to have that conversation, or you're in the wrong job.
Yeah, and it's interesting you said networking, because I still, in today's world, with all the social media and phone and email, nothing can really beat attending a physical face-to-face networking event for learning about the industry, meeting people. And in my early career, I was made to go on 2 a month, and it was brilliant just for learning about that market, learning about what people talk about, and actually learning about the people that I work with. So unfortunately though, Claire, time has beaten us.
That's good.
Our aim is always to be half an hour of high impact, terrific ideas that help recruiters go away and have a brilliant finish to the next couple of weeks. So I just wanted to say 2 things. Firstly, Claire, thank you very much today. It's been welcome. Terrific having you on.
Thank you. No, thank you.
And it's talentstories.co.uk.
Yes.
Do you want
Coming
to
soon. The website's not there yet, but it's coming very soon.
It's coming soon, but needless to say, all over LinkedIn. But if anyone just tags Claire within LinkedIn, I'm sure she'll get in touch. The second thing is, in 2 weeks' time, we've got our next show. And whilst we've spoken all the time about how we be superhero recruiters, the next show is going to be about how to be an average recruiter. And we've got the recruiting animal coming in from the East Coast of the United States of America, who's going to show us how to be an average recruiter. And hopefully there'll be some tips and tricks there that enable us to go out, build some relationships, have some fun, and ideally place a few people and make a little bit of money. So I've also just offended my guest because he's just tagged in and said I'm in Canada. So I think I'm in trouble there. So apologies, Animal. Go easy on me in a couple of weeks' time. So there'll be a link going out for that session in a few weeks' time, and we look forward to seeing you then. Take care. Thanks, Claire, and see you soon.
Thanks,
Bye, everybody.
Bye bye.